All right, Matt, appreciate you taking the time to come into the studio. You're not the first person to be in here. We're doing it up a little bit. How's your Papa Shot game?
Pretty good, pretty strong. We used to have one as a kid at our house. That was one of our Christmas presents, my brother and I. So, and then anytime I get a chance to, the boys, we find ways to compete, and if Papa Shot's available, we always get after it. So I'd say pretty good. I don't know if I'm going to set the record.
The record's 93 on there, by the way, just to let you know. But on the way out, you can test it out. 93 is my record. Okay. I know you still got those competitive juices in the family, and I got to ask you about that in the future. But I always like to open up with these segments because who doesn't like some minor league memories? You were a high school guy, 7th rounder. Then you spent some time in the minor leagues. Some of those places. One of them I actually went down to play in Asheville. Mm-hmm. Do you have any minor league stories that you would be so inclined to share throughout the years? Because you were at a time where the minor leagues was unique, to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays, like when Jackson was kind of going through the minor leagues and they had 2 buses and they were, the conditions, they had Monday off and they – it was all one city, so they were in the same town for 6 days. I was like, man, this is a lot different. So, no, I think the one thing that first of all caught me off guard was I remember the Latin guys, they mixed their milk and orange juice together. They would made some sort of like creamsicle type flavor, which I was like, okay. And then they would eat the entire fruit, which they would eat the core of the apple, and I was a little thrown off with that. But I remember Juan Uribe. He played in the big leagues for a long time. I think he finished up with the Dodgers. He was 160-pound, 18-year-old, 17-year-old, came over and obviously didn't sign for much money, didn't have much money, was willing to do just about anything. But Bob McClure, who was our pitching coach at the time in Asheville, we were in, I think we may have been Potomac. And he had been fishing that day, and we had been playing. I think we'd lost a few games in a row. So he brought one of the small bass that he had caught and put it on the spread on ice, and it was still kind of flopping around. It's a joke. And I remember Juan Uribe bit the head off that thing for like $10, and he just bit the head off of it, and there was just fish blood going down his cheeks, and like it was the most savage thing I'd ever seen. And I was like, wow, for like $10 too. It was
just for 10. Just for 10. Nothing surprises me with the minor leagues, but you're right. Those were the stories that I always loved to see. $10. Hey, $10 went a long way.
Yeah, it was I felt like he had done it before too. Like he did it with such like, this isn't the first time I've bit the head off of a fish and have just blood and stuff all over him, and everyone's like, oh.
So you thought he was a badass. Did that incline you to want to follow suit, or no?
I mean, no. I was like, wow, I would never. I mean, it smelled horrible. It was like straight out of a nasty pond. Like it was not it wasn't a tuna or something like that. This was a nasty. I think probably smallmouth bass or largemouth bass. So it was pretty gross. That one I always tell people I was like, wow, we were really There's tons of minor league stories though. That was
there's a ton.
Hotels, bad buses, overnight, the hot food at the gas station when you stop at 3 a.m, the race to like the hot dog thing that rolls.
Yeah, that rolls.
Because if you don't get like the hot food, then you're buying like, you're getting food out of the refrigerator, and then you have to warm it up in the microwave. And I remember Juan Pierre used to bring his own hot dogs. Like he would eat cold hot dogs to save his meal money.
Yeah.
So he would buy super cheap cold hot dogs and eat them instead of spending his meal money to save. So there was, guys sleeping on the floor of the bus with spit cans and dip and, just some disgusting situations.
I won't get into my story with that, but someone you talk about $10 with doing for biting off a fish head was Juan Uribe. I had a guy that for $10 when it came to dip spit, and we can put 2 and 2 together there. I know, brutal, but I'll tell you what, there was craziness in the minor leagues, and guys had to be efficient with what they wanted to do. You had to, I guess, make ends meet, and you chose how you wanted to do that. And then when you make it to the big leagues, you can be grateful of the time that you had.
And you remember, like, they're great memories. I mean, like, I have very fond memories. Like, I think in Asheville we had 6 guys living in a 2-bedroom.
Yeah,
we had guys living on a, like, first round pick. Jason Jennings is sleeping on an air mattress downstairs, and guys are sleeping all over the house and staying up, hanging out, and just great memories. But you look back on it and you're like, wow, it's quite an experience.
Quite an experience, one that you will always hold on to there, and you'll never forget what Juan could do with a fish caught out of a pond. But I always like kind of the full circle of it, because you were a high school guy. Not everyone has the same path. That's why the minor leagues, when you get there and when you get to the bigs, it's not cookie cutter. They got to go through your own journey. You were a tremendous athlete, and you were a 7th round pick. So obviously you were chosen highly to go on to play professional baseball. But for a little bit of time, did you ever think you'd go the football route? Because, I mean, you're a big dude, and I've read up, you were also pretty dominant in high school. You're the Gatorade Player of the Year in football and baseball in Oklahoma. That's all true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I was probably recruited more heavily as a football player, partly because my dad was coaching baseball at Oklahoma State, and I think the baseball community didn't want to recruit me in baseball, knowing that my dad was the head coach. But I was, heavily recruited as a football player. I kind of came to football a little bit later. Like, I grew up in a baseball family playing baseball. And then my brother kind of talked me into playing football in 8th grade, because in Oklahoma in 6th and 7th grade, if you were over 120 pounds, you had to play line. And I was basically over 120 pounds when I came out of the womb. But I wasn't allowed to play quarterback in 6th and 7th grade. And so 8th grade started school football, and I wasn't really planning on playing. My brother was a quarterback, and he talked me into, like, hey, you should go out and just see if you like it. So I started playing, quarterback in 8th grade. Was pretty good. Played again 9th grade, and then the high school coach was like, well, he's big. I think I'm gonna move him to tight end. And my brother's like, look, if you move him to tight end, he won't play. So I got to play quarterback as a sophomore. I just really, I kind of got good, like, sophomore, junior, set the state record for touchdown passes my junior year, and then started getting really heavily recruited. And actually, that was pretty, the exciting calls I got when the first day I actually was playing baseball on the USA team in Brazil. Sort of the first moment that coaches could call, and got a call from Notre Dame coach, Florida State coach, and somehow they got my number at this dorm in Brazil, and was receiving calls from college football coaches, and so that was cool. Got a chance to visit with a lot of cool guys. Rick Neuheisel was at Colorado. He wanted me to sign pro baseball and play football at Colorado, and Chris Winkie was at Florida State, so they were trying to tell me, you could play baseball and play football. And Mark Richt was the offensive coordinator, so I got really close with him. But a lot of cool football stories, and at one point I thought, I'm going to try to play both, and then that just felt a little overwhelming. And my dream was always to play Major League Baseball. And so when I got drafted, I was, kind of thought that I was going to go in the first round. The Pirates thought that we had something worked out, or I did. And then they ended up drafting a pitcher. And then kind of the second round teams kind of thought that they wouldn't be able to give me a large enough bonus to lure me away from football. And my uncle was actually a scout for the Rockies at the time. And he told their general manager basically, like, he wants to play baseball, if we can get the bonus to a place where his dad will let him go. And so that's kind of how it happened. And once we kind of worked it out with the Rockies, I was on to the minor leagues, and had some times in the minor leagues, as all minor leaguers do, where you think, what the heck did I just do? I could be playing football in front of 75,000 fans, and I'm here playing baseball in Tucson, Arizona, in front of 6 girlfriends and 2 scouts, and it's 145 degrees, and I'm 0 for 4. Where you go, what just happened? So yeah, all that to say is I did like playing football, but I loved baseball. I loved the grind of it and the challenge of it.
Hey, you followed your true passion with it,
right?
But it's also, in this day and age, when people are talking about athletes and you need to specialize, really turns out the guys that end up being some of the great players who went on to have a lot of success in one sport, they were very active in other sports. Craig Biggio, talked to him about a month or two back, and Craig, like, nonchalantly was brushing off that he was an All-American running back. And we're like, wait a minute, do you have an offer to go to Boston College? You're talking to Penn State. He's like, oh, yeah, I did. But, when I played football, I was committed, but my heart was with baseball. Mm-hmm. Turned out well for him, just like it did for you.
I mean, I promote it. Like, I think kids should play other sports. I mean, I think it offers to the sport that maybe you ultimately end up playing. I mean, all of those things. I mean, it makes you a better athlete. You're doing different movements. You're around different kinds of people and kids, and you learn leadership in different styles, and you learn how to, play different things. I actually think it's actually really great to play a couple other sports. And I played basketball all the way until my senior year. I love basketball. Like, I played pickup basketball until like last year when my hip started to go on me. But so yeah, I mean, I think kids should play other sports for sure.
Well, and it brings out the competitor in you. The more competitive you are, I feel like you want to do everything. I grew up in that type of mindset, and I'll tell you what, it helped me problem solve. It helped me try to work on different skills that I never even thought. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Honestly, I wish I did more. I was a big basketball guy in the family. We talked about it. I told you last time you were on virtual, I broke my dad's nose. He's had a broken nose 7 times. I was the last one. And that was a proudful moment. There was a one-on-one pickup game. He guessed right, but he kind of put his head down there too far, spun back.
I can tell you got some like long levers too. Like that elbow.
Watch out.
Like, that elbow looks like it would hurt.
Oh, it's there's a lot of bone there. A whole hell of a lot of bone. And let's just say I learned a lot of different words that day. Yeah. But growing up in a locker room, I was already learning that. Yeah. But it helps spark. I don't know. For me, he always tried to beat me too, and no matter what. Wouldn't give an inch. And I'm sure later on I got to ask because I can tell you're still competitive. I've seen some videos out there with your sons, and now that they are of age where they think they can beat you. So we'll get into that later. But you go on, and you have this career. 15 years, right? 15 years in the bigs. Everyone talks about their kind of first moments. Do you ever look back on your debut, and is it still kind of resonate in your mind, the feeling of being in the big leagues, the guys you were playing with? Did that dream that you talked about really like live up to everything you'd hoped?
Yeah, I mean, I had so nowadays they push them a little faster, I feel like, through the minor leagues. And so back kind of when I was coming up, it was kind of year to year, and you do repeat a year. I mean, I hit 275 I had a pretty good year in high A, and they actually sent me back for a second year in high A, which was deflating at the time. But yeah, back then it was like, it was more season to season. They didn't really move guys in the middle, but so I had a Tommy John in the middle of my minor league career. So I had some adversity. I had some struggles. I wasn't a great player all the time. I had to figure some things out with my swing. So getting that call really, it was really exciting for me. Like I had, it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get there. So I remember, I didn't make the team out of spring training in 2004. I had a really good spring training. Thought I was going to make the team. At the last day, they took another guy over me, which was hard to swallow. Went to AAA. I think I played 6 games maybe and got off to a good start. And then Preston Wilson, I think, ended up having had to have a knee surgery. So I got called up 6 days into the season. So I was in Memphis. I remember exactly where I was. I remember trying to get a hold of my wife to tell her, but she was watching The Bachelor or Bachelorette or something and wouldn't take my call.
You can't interrupt that.
Yeah, so
obviously. Yeah.
Like after the second call, you should pick up. Like it's probably something more important than so I was like, so I ended up calling my parents, and then she's like, "What?" Like I'm watching. I'm like, I got called up. I still remind her of these story, but. So yeah, I get called up, go to Colorado. We actually hurried to Colorado, to Denver. I didn't play that game. I got there right at game time. Kind of was in the dugout for a pinch hit, didn't get in. We actually flew to St. Louis that night. And then I played my first game. I started my first game the next day in St. Louis. It was Mark McGwire. They honored Mark McGwire that weekend. And so it was like a big weekend in St. Louis at Old Bush. And so, full house, and played my first game at Old Bush. Against the Cardinals, and I went over my first 7, the first 2 games, and so I was starting to feel that like, oh gosh, like I'm gonna be back in Colorado Springs in no time if I don't get a hit soon. But then the third game I got 3 hits, I think, and then kind of got my confidence a little bit, took a deep breath. Clint Hurdle, I remember him telling me, go ahead and get an apartment. Like, you're going to be here. Like, I'm not sending you back down, at least for a while. So kind of got rolling, ended up playing really well. And then Larry Walker and Preston Wilson both got healthy. And so then there was 4 of us with Jeremy Burnett, who was having a really good season. So I was kind of playing, we were all rotating through, and then they ended up trading Larry Walker to St. Louis and giving me kind of some runway to play every day, and had a good rookie year. So
you talk about another guy I spoke to. I talked to Larry Walker, not about that you coming up in that part, but he talked about his experience getting traded and going out to the Cardinals. Also, I was looking up The Bachelor or Bachelorette while we were talking here. You know, that started right around 2002. So I was going to say it had to be like season 2 or 3.
Yeah,
so it was a hot thing.
Yeah.
So if we're weighing the pros and cons, call up, which is great. Season 2 or 3 of The Bachelor, Bachelorette.
Maybe better.
It might have been better.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. And so I like to remind her, like, look, if I call you more than like 2 times now that we're married, we've been married for almost 25 years, like, you need to answer. Like, I only need a minute. Like, I don't like to talk on the phone. I'm not calling you to do like a 20-minute conversation ever. So just take my call. I literally need 1 minute.
Just 1 minute of your time.
Yeah, that's it.
And go back to whatever your scheduled programming
is that you have why you didn't answer.
Yep. Yeah, that's fine. Well, it worked out for you. You got comfortable. And Clint Hurdle, actually, I love talking to him. I think that he has such great perspective. And I know for him right now, he wrote his book, Hurdleisms, and put out all of his sayings. And I know a big part was him talking about, or at least one of those things was the failures, unfortunately, what's happening with Colorado and how you deal with failure. But then we did talk about the high successes. And 2007 was one of those years for all of you. He had a lot of great years, Matt. That had to have been the peak of those seasons. He had 137 ribbies that year, 36 jacks. Now, I got to say, I don't know how you feel about this. You had 6 triples. Will Clark, would you consider him a speed demon? No, he's got more triples than you in his career.
Really?
So we got to,
look at the stolen bases, though. I probably have more stolen bases than him.
You had 108 on your career for that, but that year in 07, finished second in the MVP, All-Star, Silver Slugger. You guys had that ridiculous finish to the season, ridiculous month plus. For talking about a team going on that type of streak, did that seem real?
We were, that was kind of when we were going through this Todd and the Toddlers, transition in Colorado. We had a lot of young players coming up, and Todd was he stuck around. There was some talk of trading to Boston and him kind of bailing on the rebuild or this young movement, and he stuck around. And so we had a young group that had kind of come up through the minor leagues together. And then we had a great group of veteran guys like Jamie Carroll and LaTroy Hawkins and Matt Hergis, and like just some guys that, people probably don't remember or know much, maybe much about, but that were like really good veteran influences. And we had just kind of a nice mix of young guys that were kind of coming into their prime, and then some older guys that were really good about leadership and roles. And so it was, we had a good team, and then, like you said, we got hot. We won 21 out of our last 22 in the major leagues. Like when it matters,
that's unbelievable.
We're just finding ways to win. I obviously had my best season that year, but Garrett Atkins, Brad Hopp, Troy Tulowitzki, Kaz Matsui was had a really good season under the radar. Willie Taveras was one of the fastest players I ever played with. So those 2 guys were hitting in front of me. You talk about 137 RBIs. Like, literally, if either one of them got on base, they were stealing second. And then they might be stealing third, or Kaz was getting him over with a bunt. And so it was just a really good lineup. Looking back on it, our pitching rotation was, guys are grinders, kind of just innings eaters, like guys that just get after you, as far as Josh Fogg and Jeff Francis. And, we had a young Baldo Jimenez had good stuff, who pitched here, obviously. But it just kind of all came together. Like, we're finding ways to win. It was a great group. We all liked each other. We had tons of fun together, and we ran it all the way to the World Series, and then we had the 10-day layoff.
Got a little cold.
Yeah, where Cleveland and Boston were beating each other up. We thought we were playing. I think Cleveland was up 3-1 in that series. Thought we were going to be playing Cleveland. Boston comes all the way back, And then, you just kind of lose a little bit of that edge and momentum. And then they punched us in the nose in the first game in Boston, and we just couldn't recover. And so obviously a very memorable year for me and for the Rockies organization. Clint was obviously our manager, and a lot of fun that year. Obviously it came up a little bit short, but it was certainly something to be proud of.
Oh, no doubt about it. Also, you had 50 doubles. So, if the stolen bases had 11, so you had a little bit of speed right there.
28, I think.
You did. Yeah. Wow. I mean, maybe you are built for speed too. Definitely built for power.
Yeah, no, I could run a little bit. I just, I remember Scott Boris, my agent, was like, he's like, hey, I love the, but pick your spots. Like, you need to be in the batter's box. Like, that's the most important thing. You break a finger stealing second in a 4-run game, like, you need to be in the box. And so that was a good reminder. Like, hey, I probably should, steal less bases.
Yeah. I agree with that. Your value, you were a bopper. I like to consider you're a guy. Hey, Matt, we need you in this situation. Someone's on, you get them in.
Yeah.
And that was you.
Yeah.
And you did that time and time again. And even during that stretch of time, 06 to 09, 3 of those 4 seasons, you had 109 RBIs or more. So your job was you were getting them in. Yeah. And I feel hitting a home run is probably one of the best feelings. Getting that steak is probably up there as well. Yeah, I can tell.
I think that's something that, a lot of the data people and the stat guys will tell you it's more about opportunity. And to some degree it is. Obviously, if you have Willie Taveras and Kaz Matsui hitting in front of you, you're going to get more opportunities. They can score more easily on a single than other guys. But there's something to the heart and the brain of driving guys in and the that it means something to you. The guy that drives runs in, that's an important quality. It's not just opportunity. Like I think there's a mental and a mental fortitude and a pride that goes into driving runs that I think sometimes gets left off nowadays when we have so much information that you're still talking about humans.
Yeah.
So it's important to remember that.
You have to. I mean, it's the human element of the game. Joe Torre was where I heard it come from, but Derek Jeter talks about it all the time. Is you can't measure a player's heartbeat. You're playing in the Bronx, situations are raised. You can find out a lot, and it doesn't mean that those guys don't have the talent, but how do you handle when situations change? Are you going through a slump? Does something not feel right? There's different terminologies, and the results are the results, but how do you get to those results? And now I'm kind of curious, what was your hitting approach, through all the years? I mean, you were a career on top of this. Again, so I don't slight you in any way. Do you remember what your career batting average was?
299.
That was that quick. Yeah. Things you don't forget.
A lot of people
just below 300. Just to remind you right there.
Yeah, I actually in 18 when I went back to the Rockies my last year, I had it over 300. So I should just walk away. If I'd have known we weren't going to win the World Series that year, I'd just walked away on that.
Walked away right there. You could be Mr. 300.
Yeah. So so 299. Yeah.
Dang, man, tough. That's what obviously people are going to remember you by. Obviously, that's what I focused on. But all jokes aside, you had so much success, and everyone has a different philosophy for how to hit. What was your approach from what your game plan was going into a game, or as far as how you wanted to prepare, and then what your mindset was when you were in the batter's box?
Yeah, I mean, I think my strength was always right center. Like I hit the ball the other way really well. I stayed on breaking balls really well. Middle of the field, I'd like to be my thing was I need to be on time to drive the ball. And like even now, like a simple aggressive thought of I'm going to hit this ball off the batter's eye. Like I'm going to smash this ball off the pitcher's face. Like something simple and aggressive that got my direction in the middle of the field was when I was my best. And that was so instead of sitting, my timing was always fastball, be ready for his best fastball in the middle of the field. And then if I'm ready and on time for that, then I can adjust with good direction. So if my timing is ready for the fastball to drive it in the middle of the field, then that will allow me a good direction. That if it's an off-speed pitch, I still have the ability to keep the bat moving in the right direction to still hit the off-speed pitch correctly. Yeah. And so that was always my focus, gap to gap, and then, obviously you occasionally, you it'll alter based on who's pitching. If you've got tendencies, or you've got a guy that you've faced a million times, or you may sit breaking ball every now and then if you've got enough data or information to go with it. But 100 out of 101 times, I'm looking time in the fastball, middle of the field. If a breaking ball pops up or a get me over ball, I'm still in position to attack it, even though I'm ready for his best fastball.
Yeah.
And so that was my go-to. I would watch a little bit of video of the guy's most recent start and how he pitched right-handers in his most recent start, and how hard was he throwing, what's his go-to out pitch, just some general data for me, because I got a little overwhelmed with all of, even then, the information. They have so much more now, but even then, like, I didn't want to give him too much credit, like in my mind. Like I wanted to think about the horrible pitches he's made. I wanted to watch the video of him getting lit up, or the good at bats I had off of him.
Right.
Like that was what I wanted to focus on, because that's what helped me. I didn't want all the data of this percentage here and this percentage there and this count, that count, because what if it's not for me? Like that day, what if he throws me something else and why would I go away from what I'm good at to like try to guess that he might do this? So I had to keep it really simple, and that might be just more me personally, but
I don't think it's just you. Everyone that I talk to, well, I shouldn't say everyone. Let me take that back. A lot of hitters that had success, they try to simplify their thoughts or simplify their thought when they're in the process. You're not the only one that also says, hey, I'm thinking big part of the field or maybe opposite field gap, because it helped you stay on the baseball. It's the same thing when people talk about, we're trying to be direct to the baseball. And then people go back and watch, well, wait a minute, your swing sometimes can have an uppercut. Well, as a hitter, it's what you're telling yourself, right? You're saying you want to hit a ball right back off the pitcher. I'm not really trying to hit the guy unless, maybe if he drilled you at times, there could be a different time.
I wish I was that good.
Yeah, I wish I was that good, but it's a thought, right? And then your mind's focused on just that.
Yeah.
And if you overload it and you're not capable of that, then you're doing yourself a disservice. That's the whole part of baseball, right?
Yeah.
My dad liked to guess pitches.
Yeah.
And he faced a guy, he'd make calculated risks. But if someone hung a pitch and he's in a good position, then great. He'll make them pay. And I just always like to hear that.
Yeah.
Now, maybe on the flip side, because it can relate to, at least with Jackson right now, and Ethan when the time comes, and whatever happens with your youngest son, but then dealing with failure and dealing with expectations, which that was the one thing when I watched Jackson, I could feel I still remember that game last year in Baltimore where everyone's standing up every single time that he would come to the plate. It's a lot of pressure and expectation. And on top of it, he was going to struggle at some point. Why? Baseball's pretty damn hard. You hit 299, not 300. But so you failed 71% of the time. How did you deal with failure then in those moments? Because it is inevitable to deal with.
Yeah. I was a little resistant to there's a lot of really good sports psychologists now, and guys that are, a lot of books and a lot of guys that are working, and I think it's good. I was a little resistant. I was a little more old school. Like I felt like that was sort of a sign of weakness.
Like weakness, yeah.
Like that was kind of the era that maybe you're younger than I am, but that was kind of maybe your dad, but like that was kind of like, I don't need that. I'm tough enough to handle this and get through it.
Yeah.
So a lot of I would deal with it in a way where I would look at mechanics probably too much, where I would say, I'm not struggling because of what I'm thinking. I'm struggling because something is off in my mechanics. And when this gets right, the results will come, which gives me confidence. Right.
Yeah.
So I'll get my confidence back because I know something's off. And once I feel good about my swing, then I know the results will come. So that's how I sort of did it in my mind. I didn't always get it right. And I'm not saying that's healthy. But that's kind of the way I would probably watch too much and look at myself and break it down a little too much.
Yeah.
So I've always have encouraged the boys, the older boys especially, like, let's just figure out how to get your body. Like, I'm going to tell you where I want you to hit it. And then mechanically, especially as a young kid, like your body will gather in a way to hit it where I tell you to hit it.
Yeah.
So you're not thinking about your mechanics, because I didn't want them to be as mechanical as I was, as far as my thoughts consuming, those things.
Yeah. I mean, it still sounds like for your kids, and even the whole thing where apparently huge story that Matt Holliday talked to his son Jackson about hitting, because I laugh at that. We talked about it before this. No one knows their son better than their dad. You spent time growing up with him, and also after the game, are you guys going to talk baseball? I think it's a pretty good bet, because I did that with my dad every single time. But it seems like to me then you just talked about the mechanics, but the word feel. So when you're talking about it, I think, is that a fair assessment now where you're telling with Ethan, with Jackson? You got to feel what you're doing, and you can make adjustments here, but you don't have to obsess over, am I in this right spot every single time? Because it can go the other way. You're right, where it can just drive you insane, because then you're so focused on that, and that can be frustrating when it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, I'm sure your dad would watch you, but I watch his at bats, and I'm really closely like, why he didn't swing at this pitch, or is he in position to hit this one, or and I just say, if I wonder, like, were you looking for a pitch there, or just it's fun for me. Like, I just want to kind of know what he's thinking and why certain things are happening, and so like even talking about like the adjustment, like it looked to me like this was feeling good for a while, where he was kind of flatter and on his shoulder in spring training, but then it led to a little bit of early rotation and around the ball a little bit, and he wasn't sort of able to move this way long enough. And so I just said, hey, like when you first started doing this newer stance with the
toe tap,
and the leg kick, that you kind of had your just little things that of course I'm watching, and I can notice like the littlest thing just watching his stance. I'm like, oh, he's a little bit taller today. I wonder if he's doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
Or he's not as into his legs in this at bat. I wonder if he's doing that on purpose. Yeah. Like, just so I think I'm doing a good job of healthy watching it, and just kind of asking him questions about why he's doing what he's doing. But like you said, I mean, no one's watching him closer than I am. And I'm good friends with the hitting coaches here.
Yeah.
Like, I text with them, and like, so it's not like I'm trying to like sneak him over to a facility and coach him. I want to be just as, look, I respect what they're doing. They're with him every day.
Yeah.
So I have total respect for that, but I also, know him pretty well, and we talk every day about hitting. I'm not here every day, but I'm watching every day.
Well, I mean, what's the ultimate goal then for Jackson, right? Is for him to go have success.
Yeah, be the best player he can be.
So who cares of how it's happening there too, but also, I mean, as we go through this, you spent a little bit of time in the big leagues, 15 years. You had all those RBIs, not a lot of triples because speed wasn't your thing, but it was Will Clark's somehow. Now I'm curious what happened with my dad with triples. There's no way he has more than you. I
stopped trying for triples. I think my last 5 or 6 years, it's like the outfielder's going to have to play this double into a triple for me to
really go there.
Yeah.
My dad got you in triples, but we'll just say because he wanted to play all those games and all of that type of thing. He had 44 triples. I don't know why I'm obsessing over triples right now, but I am curious. You did beat him in most doubles in a season. He never got more than 47. So you can let him know that in the future there, that, there's certain things he had to work on for his game. But but the beauty of it, the part is talking about the game. How do you make guys better? I know right now, like baseball has the struggles. That's life, and I'm even watching some of these other guys in the squad, and not just with the Orioles, but, Gavin Sheets, who's on the Padres, one of my best friends, and seeing him when he was in Chicago, woof, it was a rough go for the team. He goes out west, new environment. He got out of his head, changing things in the offseason, and he's having a great start to the year. Then there's guys on the team right now, like with Baltimore. I tell people, it's like, hey, Gunnar didn't lose talent. It's not you watch Space Jam.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like the Monstars stole his talent or Adley's talent or whoever it is, but there are adjustments that have to be made. So that's why I asked about the frustrations. I mean, you were on some teams also that were bad. That's a tough thing to kind of battle through as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, because it feels like it's about you when the team's not. It's not as fun to get the runner over in a big spot. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't feel as like if I can just find one thing to do to help the team win today, we're in the middle of this. Like it's all about winning. When you're struggling, it feels like, well, it's the only thing. If I get 2 for 4 or 1 for 3, it just becomes too self-centered. I think to have real joy of playing the game, and that's when we actually play our best. Is when we're playing team baseball, and being on a bad team almost promotes like turning your attention from winning and having a great season and make the playoffs to, okay, I got to get mine. And I don't, and that's not a good thing. And I don't promote that. I'm just saying it almost feels like you feel the shift.
Well, it's true in baseball, right? Where the minor league is the best example of that, because it really doesn't matter if the team is, the 142 game season before, if they won 142, but you hit 230, that ain't going to cut it. You're going to lose your job. Yeah. But if the team is 42 and 100 and you hit 300, well, guess what? You're going up. It's that side of it. And then also when you get to the bigs, you got to prove to everyone else that you can belong there. And that was the part that's where it gets tough. But the best that I ever played, remember in 2019, I had 1 year where we went to the playoffs in Bowie in AA. And I enjoyed it so much because I didn't think once about what I needed to do at the dish. We were in the middle of a race, and that was fun. I ended up hitting 282 when I was up in AA, and I sat there, well, dang, how did I do that? I wasn't focusing on the individual stats. The results happened because the end goal was to win. But so, like, just to explain to people out there, like that's the part where
it's freeing. It's not all about you. It's like, you're the man on second, and you're like, okay, I got to get him over for my buddy because we score this run, we extend our lead. And by doing that, it's like, okay, I'm playing the game the right way, and boom, line drive, base hit, and it's first and third, or he scored. It's like the proper approach to play the game instead of, I can go deep right here, and then next thing you roll over, you strike out or whatever. And it's just like, not only is it more fun, but you actually play better when that's the sole focus is to win.
Naturally do. It's all about when you're in the heat of competition, truly competition, and you're trying to win something. Typically, when that focus is there, you have success. And there's nothing like winning. There really isn't. When you win, it's great. The accolades are great. You hit 299, it's great. I'm never gonna forget what your batting average is now.
Of us. I think Dante Bichette also is a career 299.
Really?
Yeah.
It's incredible to me. In my mind, when I'm looking at what you accomplished over 15 years, I told Will Clark the same thing. I said, if it never works of being recognized by the Hall of Fame, you guys are in an elite group of being some of the best players during your time when you played. And I think that is special in itself, but also I feel those guys are the ultra competitors. So to kind of wrap this up, I know you don't give in to your kids on there in the realm of sports. I've seen kind of the setup you guys have back home where it's almost like a little bit of a fun house. Or do you guys have a name for that spot?
No, we probably should, but we don't.
You're not yet, but there's a lot of competition that can brew there. Now, Ethan, who knows? Maybe you're going to become a DMV or Baltimore local here if he goes to the Nationals, which I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think that would be pretty cool. Would that had to be a first then if Ethan goes 1 to have 2 brothers as the number 1 overall pick?
Yeah, I think Peyton and Eli Manning are the only other ones in sport.
And the other in sport, but in baseball, it'd be the first ever. So a lot riding on there, but no matter what, if they're first or not, you're still going to beat them in any competition still?
Yeah, no, I think we actually talked about this. Jackson and I did an interview with the Cardinal guy the other day, and he remembered a little more harsh than I remembered. He's like, oh, yeah, my dad never let us win anything. Like, he would just – and I was like, oh, really? I was like, I thought I was a little nicer than that. But no, I think we still, like, compete. And, like, I'm big into pickleball, and so they're pretty good at pickleball. But we play 2-on-2, and it gets pretty heated at times. Like there's a very competitive. Even last night we played cards at Jackson's house with the whole family, and then my 11-year-old. Like we were playing Screw Your Neighbor.
Yeah.
Everybody can play, and he threw something across the room. The 11-year-old, when he got screwed out of the game, he was a little competitive. We're just having fun on an off night playing cards, and so it's definitely in our family. I'm sure like yours, where everything is a competition and everything is life or death, and it's on the line. Everything we do is very, very competitive.
Is there anything you say that you won't win at anymore? Is basketball starting to go away because you can't play?
Yeah, we haven't played that much lately.
Well, I mean, technically, not for playing for them, but saying that's one thing like you physically can't do. So as it goes,
if we were playing one-on-one half court, I still like my chances against both of them.
Okay, fair enough. So basketball is still the best. Pickleball,
they hit the ball a little further than I do now in baseball. I think they've passed me in
power,
probably in distance. Like my bat speed right now is probably slipped a little bit to where I think though if I took a month of training, because a lot of these competitions we do that come sporadically, I don't get ready for them. I just
show up.
Yeah, but if I train for a month, I still think I can hang with them as far as like exit velo and distance.
Well, it's their jobs now. I mean, Ethan, it's going to be his job to be a professional baseball player.
I have a hard time relinquishing that one though, but like I always hold on to like, well, if I train for 6 weeks, which I'll never do now, but I could still.
You still look like you're in good shape.
Yeah, no, I work out with them, and
just not the baseball.
Yeah.
I'm
just not taking 150 swings in the cage every day anymore. I throw 150 balls, but I don't hit any.
Yeah, you're now the BP pitcher.
Yeah.
How's your BP?
It's good.
It's good.
Yeah, I think it's really good. Yeah,
you can throw it where you want.
Yeah.
So if maybe down the road one of them are in a home run derby, you would be the guy.
I would like to think so. I've thrown to them more than anybody else. Yeah, I throw mixed to them too. They want mixed BP, so I try to strike them out. I've got a few pitches. Usually, I have a hard time moving my elbow the next day when I throw it. Throwing splits and curveballs and stuff. But I give them a little mix every now and then.
Okay. See, that's the part I love. Well, hopefully in the future, I want to see that competitive nature put to the test. Maybe Ethan or Jackson or anyone, or your 11-year-old son, I'm sorry, his name? Reed. If he wants to try out the Papa Shot sometime.
He would be in here banging around in there.
Okay, well, we'll have to make that happen in the future, but I'll let you go. I appreciate your time, Matt. Thank you. And in my book, you are a 300 hitter, no matter what.
Appreciate that. People always like, yeah, you should go back and get one more hit. I'm like, unfortunately, when you have that many at bats, it's not just one more hit.
Like, what would it be like 2, 3?
I think it's like 3 or 4. And getting just 3 or 4 hits would have been. I mean, you have. I don't know if it's that. It wasn't that easy. So I was like, that'll just be me. I'll be 299.
Okay, we'll live for that, and then we can see what your sons are going to be able to make with their careers in the short term. But also, in the meantime, hope you enjoy being here and look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.